It was one of those crisp October afternoons when the world seems painted in gold. The kind of day that reminds you why autumn was always your favorite season. Thomas Parker walked hand in hand with his 7-year-old daughter, Emma, through the tree-lined path they'd walked 100 times before. The leaves crunched beneath their feet in that satisfying way that never gets old, no matter how many years go by. Emma wore her bright red sweater, the one her grandmother had sent for her birthday, and purple leggings that she'd insisted on wearing despite Thomas's gentle suggestion that maybe jeans would be warmer. But that was Emma. Spirited, independent, so much like her mother had been. It had been 3 years since the accident. 3 years of learning to braid hair, pack lunches, and answer questions that sometimes broke his heart. 3 years of being both a mother and father to this beautiful girl with wild, curly hair and eyes that saw the world with such wonder. Thomas was 42 now, though some days he felt older. He wore a blue jacket over a simple white shirt, clothes that had become his uniform of sorts. Practical, unremarkable, just trying to get through each day and be the parent Emma deserved. They were heading home from Emma's art class, taking the long way through the park because the weather was too beautiful to waste. That's when they saw her. A woman, maybe in her late 30s, sat slumped against an old oak tree. Her blonde hair fell across her face in disheveled waves. She wore a burgundy jacket that had seen better days and a black leather skirt. Even from a distance, Thomas could see she wasn't well. "Daddy, that lady." Emma's voice was small, concerned. Thomas felt that familiar tightness in his chest, the instinct to protect his daughter from the harder parts of life, to keep walking, to explain later, in some sanitized way, that sometimes people struggle and there's nothing we can do about it. But Emma had already let go of his hand. "Wait, honey," Thomas said, but she was already moving toward the woman, her small feet kicking up leaves as she went. By the time Thomas caught up, Emma was kneeling beside the stranger, her young face greased with worry. Up close, Thomas could see the woman's pale complexion, the way her chest rose and fell in shallow, labored breaths. Her eyes were closed. On the ground beside her was an empty pill bottle. His heart hammered. He should call someone. Should. What? His mind raced through options while his daughter did what came naturally to her. Miss, are you okay?" Emma's voice was gentle, the way she spoke to injured birds they'd found in the yard. The woman's eyes fluttered open. They were blue, glassy, unfocused. She looked at Emma, then at Thomas, and something like shame passed across her face. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry you have to see this." Thomas knelt down too, his knees protesting slightly. Getting older, he thought absently. "What did you take?" he asked, keeping his voice calm. "How many pills?" The woman's eyes filled with tears. "All of them. I couldn't anymore. I just couldn't." Emma reached out and took the woman's hand, just held it, and something in that simple gesture made the woman start to cry in earnest. Thomas pulled out his phone, called for an ambulance, gave their location. While they waited, Emma didn't let go of the stranger's hand. She just sat there in the leaves, in her bright red sweater, holding on. "What's your name?" Emma asked softly. "Rachel," the woman managed. "Rachel Morrison." "I'm Emma." "That's my dad, Thomas." "You're going to be okay, Rachel." "My dad always says that when things are really bad, you just have to hold on until they get better." Thomas felt his throat tighten. He'd said those words so many times in the dark days after his wife died, mostly to himself, late at night. He didn't know Emma had been listening. The ambulance arrived within minutes, though it felt longer. The paramedics were efficient, professional. They loaded Rachel onto a stretcher while Emma stood close by, her hand only releasing Rachel's when absolutely necessary. "Will you come with me?" Rachel asked, looking at Emma with desperate eyes. "Please." Thomas wanted to say number, wanted to take his daughter home, make hot chocolate, pretend this hadn't happened. But Emma was already looking up at him with that expression he could never refuse. "Please, Daddy." So they rode to the hospital in Thomas's sedan, following the ambulance through streets that seemed too ordinary for the weight of what was happening. At the hospital, they waited. Emma sat in a plastic chair, swinging her legs, drawing pictures on the back of a deposit slip Thomas had found in his wallet. 2 hours later, a doctor emerged. Rachel was stable. The pills had been mostly muscle relaxants, not quite the fatal cocktail she'd intended. She'd be kept for observation, then transferred to the psychiatric ward. "She's asking for the little girl," the doctor said, looking at Emma. "Says she needs to thank her." In Rachel's room, propped up on pillows, the woman looked small and fragile. Her blonde hair had been brushed back from her face, without the makeup that had smeared across her cheeks. She looked younger, lost. "I'm glad you're okay," Emma said, climbing onto the chair beside the bed. Rachel reached for her hand again. "I don't know why you stopped, why you cared." "Because you needed help," Emma said simply. "That's what people do." Thomas stood in the doorway, watching his daughter. When had she become so wise? When had she learned that the hardest thing and the right thing are often the same thing? Rachel looked at Thomas. "I lost my job 6 months ago. My husband left. I couldn't make rent. Everything just piled up. I felt so alone." "You're not alone now," Emma said, and somehow, over the weeks that followed, that became true. Thomas and Emma visited Rachel in the hospital. They were there when she was discharged to outpatient treatment. Thomas helped her find a job posting at the company where he worked. Emma drew her pictures. Slowly, carefully, Rachel began to piece her life back together. She found a small apartment, started therapy, made it through the days that felt impossible. One Saturday, almost 2 months after that October day, Rachel came to their house for dinner. She brought flowers and wore a soft smile. Her hair was pulled back neatly, and there was color in her cheeks. They ate spaghetti, Emma's favorite. They talked about small things, the weather, Emma's upcoming school play, a funny thing that happened at Rachel's new job. After dinner, while Thomas did dishes, Emma showed Rachel her room, her drawings, her collection of interesting rocks, all the small treasures of childhood. From the kitchen, Thomas could hear them laughing. The sound filled something in him that had been hollow for too long. Later, after Rachel had gone home and Emma was tucked into bed, his daughter looked up at him with serious eyes. "Daddy, do you think Rachel will be okay now?" Thomas smoothed her wild curls back from her forehead. "I think so, sweetheart. I think she just needed to know someone cared." "Good," Emma said, snuggling deeper into her blankets. "Because everybody needs somebody." Thomas stood in the doorway for a long time after Emma fell asleep, thinking about the randomness of it all. The chance of being in that exact place at that exact time. The courage it took for a 7-year-old to kneel beside a stranger. The choice to get involved when it would have been easier to walk away. His wife used to say that we're all just walking each other home. He understood that now in a way he hadn't before. We're all stumbling through, trying our best, hoping someone will catch us when we fall. Outside, the autumn leaves continued their eternal fall to earth. The seasons would change, as they always did. Winter would come, then spring, then summer, and then autumn again. Life would go on, with all its pain and all its unexpected grace. And somewhere in the city, a woman who hadn't expected to see another October was making plans for tomorrow. Because a little girl in a red sweater had refused to walk past. Because a tired single father had chosen compassion over caution. Because sometimes, the smallest acts of kindness echo further than we can imagine. That night, Thomas stood at his bedroom window, looking out at the world bathed in moonlight. He thought about all the paths we walk, the choices we make, the strangers we pass. He thought about his daughter, asleep down the hall, and the world she was teaching him to see. And he felt grateful for autumn days and second chances, for daughters who lead with their hearts, for the reminder that we're all connected in ways we don't always recognize until we choose to look. Tomorrow, he would wake up and make breakfast. He would braid Emma's hair, probably not very well. He would go to work and come home and do it all again. The ordinary rhythms of life. But now he knew something he hadn't known before, that sometimes, the ordinary contains the extraordinary. That stopping to help doesn't just save someone else, it saves us too. And that love, real love, is just showing up, holding a hand, refusing to let go when it matters most. The leaves would fall, the seasons would turn, but some moments, some choices, some small acts of courage, they last forever.